So nice to see you.
Hello.
I'm just going to get up and look a little bit closer at the faces who are here. Georgia, Janine, Margie, hi. So great. Look at all these people we have. Okay, hi everybody. It's really great to see your faces. Yeah, so why don't we, while we're waiting for more people to join the room, why don't we just feel free to unmute yourself and just say your name and tell us where you're from. I'll start. I'm Elizabeth, you probably know that, and I'm calling in here from upstate New York, not originally from up here, but it's been home for a while, and it's beautiful late autumn here. Okay.
Oh, go ahead. Who's that? Karen?
Now I can hear you. Bruce, I can't hear people.
Oh, I got Karen's face really big on my screen.
Oh,
Yeah,
sometimes that happens.
you're really big on our screen.
Yeah, you're big on ours, Janine.
Oh, hi, I'll just go then. Sorry. I'm Janine. I'm here in New York City now, originally from Philadelphia. I have a little cold, but I'm so happy to be here and grateful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margie Roshan. I live in Massachusetts, about an hour outside Boston.
Hi, Margie.
Hi, I'm Mary, and Mary Pierce Brosmer, and I live in Cincinnati. Right now, I'm in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, because my grandson goes to the University of New Hampshire, and visiting with him. So happy to be here. My friend Julie Murray connected me.
I was going to ask you if you were a friend of Julie's.
Absolutely, very much so. Thank you.
Yes, happy to have you.
Thank you.
I'll go. I'm Ela. I'm from upstate New York as well, south and east of Elizabeth and Bruce, maybe an hour away from Phoenicia. So glad to be here. I've been in this area for about 50 years, and this is home.
Welcome.
I'll go. Mary Beth McBride from Tallahassee, Florida.
Hi, Mary Beth.
Hi.
Brian Foster from Sarasota, Florida. Full of sunshine.
Hi, Brian. Good to see you.
We were in senior year together, I guess.
At the Brennan School, we sure were. It's been a
Yeah,
long time.
it has been.
You look great.
Still hanging on.
I guess I should go then. Ruth Ann Gilday from Rhode Island.
Hi, Ruth Ann. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello? Hello.
Georgia.
Georgia here. Live in Heber, Utah, and we just had our first snow last night, and it will be snowing for the next couple days. So happy to be here. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Hi, I'm Deanna. I'm from Marin County. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
In California. So glad to be here. Love your work.
Great to have you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Ashforth. I'm also from California, and I'm also a Brennan grad.
Hi, Karen.
I'm Kate McPherson, also known as 015597, as I could see here. I don't know what that is, but anyway, I'm in Bodega Bay, California, and I'm a Brennan grad.
Thank you for coming. It's been a long time. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you.
Hey, Kate.
Hi, how are you doing?
Sweet.
Okay, good. Good, Bruce. One of these times I got to talk to you about what we've got. You and I. Our just process.
Right. But it's Brian.
Oh, is this Brian? Okay.
Right.
Okay. Sorry. You guys sound alike.
I'm not quite as tall as he is.
Hi, I'm Eve, and I'm in Washington, D.C., and also a Brennan grad, 2021, so fairly recent.
Hi, Eve.
Hello, Julia Flint in West.
Hi, Julia.
Hello, good to see you. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. Tell us where you're from, although I know.
I'm in West Virginia.
Oh, you're in West Virginia now. Okay.
Formerly Ohio.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Andrea. Also a Brennan grad from the European School. I'm calling from Munich, Germany. And I'm happy to be here. Very curious.
Welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Hi there. Am I unmuted?
No.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm Andrea Dazzi. Yes, I actually studied with you and Bruce at Brennan School. It's great to see you. Loved the extra classes that you would give in the evening. Just loved them.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Teresa Boshears, and I kind of go between Maryland and Indiana. And I graduated in 2012 from Barbara School.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rita. I am in Spain right now, and I did 3 years of Brennan, and that's how I met Elizabeth and Bruce, and they were a very big, now I'm speaking Spanish a lot, I forget the word, but they facilitated a lot of new embodiment for me in the school, and great transformation. So that's why I'm here, because I really love their work, and I have to say that my biggest breakthrough was probably in year one, thanks to them and in the way I felt myself in the world, and it just made me excited about being alive in a different way completely. So that's why I'm here, because I love what they do.
Thank you. It's so great to see you, Rita. Okay. Well, I think that that's about everybody who's here now. So let's just get started. Oh, wait a minute. Is there anybody else who just popped in who wants to just say, give us their name and tell us where they're calling from?
Oh, well, I'm Gemma. Hi. I am
Gemma.
Yeah, Gemma Gadijan from New York City. And I'm really wanted to observe this class because I'm such fans of what you do, and it sounded interesting. I'm not technically a healer of any sort, but I am definitely fall into the empath category. And I know what it means to get overwhelmed and stressed and be, as I mentioned, overly caregiving at times. So that's why I'm listening in today and happy to be here.
Gemma is a healer too. Her friendship is healing.
Oh, hi there. I know you.
That is true. Okay, so Well, welcome everybody to Radical Practices for Healers to relieve overwhelm, burnout, and stress, and experience greater vitality, joy, and purpose. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Elizabeth Andes Bell, and this class is for you if, and listen, Gemma, if you're a healer, a body worker, a movement professional, like a yoga, Pilates, or somatic teacher or a therapist, as well as any professional in the healing or creative arts. And I'm going to say, and as well as empaths who are highly artistic and their healing is their presence in the world. And a lot of us happen to all struggle with myofascial pain and mobility issues, or overwhelm, emotional exhaustion, difficulty with focus, or just dealing with all this uncertainty there is in the world. Hold on for 1 second. I just want to make sure, Bruce, that you get me in speaker view. And okay. And what I want to do is just do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into everything that we're going to talk about today. So let's make sure you all mute yourself. And if you don't know where that is, that's that bottom left corner.
I muted them.
Oh, Bruce muted you. Okay, so then save your questions until the end. And if a question pops up in your head during the talk, you can type it in the chat. We'll get to that. And then when we get to the Q&A at the end, after we've answered whatever's in the chat, you just can unmute yourself and ask whatever you want. So, what are we covering today? 1, how to awaken these latent capacities in our bodies, in our fascial bodies, to heal old trauma, and to reshape our bodies to be more efficient and more resilient and to feel younger. And most of all, to feel hardier again, like, we have some internal stability that we can find. And all that results ultimately in our longevity and the well-being that we all seek. So the second thing I'm going to cover is what I call the 3 streams of somatic trust. And that's really the core here. And I'm going to talk about why you need them to really be able to emerge free of your old programming. We're also going to unwind some fascial patterns so that you can move with more fluidity and also find your stability. And I'm going to share some cutting edge tools with you and movement practices that hopefully will become yours for life. So, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold too, so I got some peppermint tea here. Ooh. If you're a feeling person and you feel anxiety and pain and the struggles of the whole collective, really, from all the ruptures in normal life and in our lives, as well as all the suffering of your clients, in your families, and the toxic culture we grew up in, and the suffering of the earth and the climates that are going crazy, and all of the creatures of the earth. It can get really hard for us sensitives not to get overwhelmed by all of this. And in addition to that, we are healers. And we have to hold the suffering of all our clients as well. It's a lot, it's a lot of weight. And sometimes the struggle that we have for self-care versus the service that we want to provide leaves us spinning in our wheels and not knowing where we should focus, losing touch with our deepest values, and feeling like it's really hard to say no and to stay on track and to provide the real service that is so desperately needed today. And then there's all the frustration around our purpose. We want to serve, we want to contribute our gifts, and we struggle with this fear of, well, if I'm visible, then I get vulnerable. And maybe that would change this delicate power balance I have with my spouse or my family or my friends. Now, these internal conflicts have really long-term consequences on our physical and our emotional health. And they diminish the vitality and decrease the neurological connections. They numb us, and we lose connection to our empathic gifts. So they also mold us into the shape of what we fear. In other words, we become this. This is one of my favorite slides from an old book by Stanley Kellerman. It was, really one of the first pioneers in looking at how forces shape us. And, what I want you to see is, where are the arrows here? In most cases, really in all cases, they're from the outside in. There are these external forces that are always impacting us. There's a lot of forces, even just as biological organisms, that are impacting us as creatures on this ball floating in space. So, if you just were to look at that alone, your body could get shaped. But when you think about all of the intelligence and feeling that we have, you can begin to see that unless there was something really vital and strong pushing back from the inside out, you could really get collapsed by these forces. So it is impossible, especially during this time of great evolutionary challenge, to have the strength and the fluidity in order to feel and to witness and hold and effectively and creatively respond. To respond to all of this, not just parts of it, and while doing that, to embody your potency, to feel it, to unleash your creative gifts in a flow state, and really feel like you're serving as your soul's calling you to. So this is a question that I struggled with throughout all of my years of yoga and meditation and going to healing school and teaching at healing school and going on spiritual retreats and having therapy and doing plant medicine ceremonies. I struggled with this still. And those things helped me. They really did. I mean, I got a long way with it, but something always fell short for me. I would feel better and have more self-awareness. But after a while, these issues kept resurfacing, these old core things. It's like, this again is coming up. A crisis would happen and I would immediately feel like it was life-threatening. Like, I'd feel it in my gut. Or I'd lose myself. And I'd become way, way too compliant with all the narcissists and their constant demands. I mean, it didn't even feel like I was being me anymore. I guess it's because I could always feel other people's feelings my whole life. And in a safety response, I just would automatically morph myself into this nice, competent, low maintenance person that they needed, or that I thought they needed in order for me to survive. And, I would just end up feeling unseen and unheard and unmet. It's like, you don't even know who I am. I didn't know how to bridge the inside of me with the outside world. I didn't know how to do that. I would lose this. And I just guess I didn't know how to turn down the volume on all of that outside noise of other people's demands and expectations, or what I even imagined them to be. the work that I felt that I was here to contribute never stopped burning inside me. For all those years, it never stopped. And yet somehow it always seemed to be the last priority. And as the years went by, my life became more and more chaotic. And then the surreal existential threats of the world became more and more regular. And I just got to this point where I wasn't sure about anything. I realized that most of the things that I thought I was sure about and that I took for granted at reality was just a crock of bullshit. I just started realizing I have to decolonize myself from all that negative programming. That has not nourished me. So I realized I was this product of a culture designed to control me and control the light that I was carrying. So I was gaslit into compliance. And I gaslit myself. And I didn't see the whole constellation. I thought that the issues that I had were all my fault. It was all my fault. And yet I also felt like a victim. And, I realized this worked so well on me because I could feel so much. I could feel so much to begin with that I just couldn't sort it all out. And I felt like I lost my self-agency and that all I was doing was reacting. I was putting out a fire and then I was putting out another fire. And my highly sensitive nature was weaponized against me. But thanks to the practices that I was doing and the friends that I had support. I could maintain an even keel, even when I was juggling a million things. But to tell you the truth, underneath, I was dry tinder for any hot match. So, is it even possible to solve this burnout, overwhelm problem if you're an empath? The answer is no, it's not. At least not from where we normally sit. Here, you can't solve the problem with the same thinking that we use to create them. My friend Einstein, you know that overused saying. But in this case, it's literally true. We're in the age of transparency. We're shedding so many of the trauma-based systems of our civilization right now. And we're breaking through old paradigms of who we are and what our body, mind, and psyche is capable of. Over the last 7 years, I'll tell you, since I've been in the mountains, I have unwound loads of trauma in my tissues. And I've anchored my feeling awareness in the flow state of my living core. I've opened my perceptions. I have even shifted my relationship to gravity, time, and space. I kid you not. And you can do this too. It's an evolutionary process. I've also rewilded my sacred connection with nature. And I've explored new ways to move out into contact and bridge that in-between space from a place of my authenticity, my buoyancy, and my joy. I want to share that with you today. And I want to tell you that it's not only possible, but I want to tell you how I did it. But, before I do, for those of you who do not know me, I've been a movement teacher and researcher for over 40 years. And my partner, Bruce, and I, Bruce, by the way, I didn't introduce you. He's over here running the slides. You'll see him come in and out. We met as dancers in a Soho loft, and we were learning how to move energy through our bodies. From there, we went to the Barbara Brennan School of Healing to train as healers, and we taught our somatic work in the school for a decade. We also owned and operated yoga and fitness centers in New York City for 22 years. In addition to being a certified healer, I am trained in developmental and depth psychology. I'm a teacher and practitioner of Continuum. I've been a fitness and yoga teacher and had a private practice in energy, movement healing, and yoga therapy for over 30 years. Now, for those of you who do know me, you may not know that I am also a hypermobile zebra with self-diagnosed EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I was raised by two narcissists who had me when they were still children themselves. And I've suffered from generalized anxiety disorder most of my life. But I'm also a full-blown empath and a rebel who is psychic as hell. But I gaslit myself because of my patterns of hypervigilance and people-pleasing and my blindness to being gaslit at all. That's all kept me overgiving and over caretaking to exhaustion. Feeling guilty about setting boundaries, then caving in on those boundaries, then getting enmeshed again, then losing my focus, and not really valuing my purpose. Because really no one else ever reflected it back to me in the world that I lived in. And I didn't know really how to stay in that place of resourcing it myself. Well, I got to tell you, 9/11 changed me. By that time, Bruce and I had two young children, and we were living just outside of New York City on the banks of the Hudson River. So those planes came right down to hit the World Trade Center, right past my house. And it really threw me for a loop. I realized at that point, really at that day, I said, shit, the only way my kids are going to have a future is if people change from the inside. We have to have a big sea change here. And that's when I began this work in earnest. But, you know, it was a long time. That was a long time ago. And it wasn't until my kids grew up and I left my old life behind and spent 7 years in the mountains that this work really came together. And I'm going to share the details of this work with you later today. But for a bit of context, just let's get back to old Einstein for a second, who also said that his best ideas never came from thinking. It wasn't until he rested his brain and took a slow, silent swim that inspiration would strike. So to really understand what this is all about, we don't want to talk about the brain. We want to talk about today the fascia. And I want you to get a little bit of understanding about what fascia is and how it, as the fabric that holds us and shapes who we are and our emotions and even our perceptions. It's important to know a few things about just how crazy and amazing your fascial body is. So it turns out we're not this mannequin on the left, but this fibroblast cell, or more like it, on the right. The more we can shift our understanding of ourselves from the mannequin to the fibroblast, that thing that is growing and evolving and changing by the moment as conditions arise, it's responding and shape-shifting. We're not static. The more we can expand our understanding of that, the more we get to realize that's who we are. That's what we're capable of. We can co-create our own evolution then. And this is a fascia cell. It's a mouse embryo, but it's a picture of the fibroblasts, that geometric white symbol in the center is of fibroblasts that are growing, and it's growing in all of our bodies too. From the micro to the macro level in our bodies, we have these fibroblast cells. And so this is an example that nature actually has a very good plan for all living organisms and for them all to thrive together. And the secret lies in how fascia helps us to adapt to the changes and remain whole and connected throughout them. But really, it's only been in the last 15 or so years that we've begun to understand that. So I want to present a new view of the body to you. This quantum anatomy, which is this tissue of your fascia. So you're a shapeshifter. Your body's fascia, when it's healthy, functions like a superconductor, making you able to respond to changing conditions with lightning fast speed. Your body is made up of a continuous web of living liquid crystal. It's neither solid, liquid, or gas. It's actually the fourth state of matter, meaning that it's a shape-shifting thing that can change from a liquidy solution to a more solid gel. And the fluid solution sends information through our bodies in a nanosecond. And it also transports nutrients and removes waste. And but I just want to say, when you see those stories of a mother dashing in front of a oncoming vehicle to pull her toddler out of the way, and that's like boom, before you can even know why you're moving. That's what I'm talking about. That's that lightning fast speed. The information does not have time to go through your muscles to your central nervous system, to your brain, and then back down and make you move again. By that time, forget about it. Now, the gel part is also really great because it supports us. It supports us so that we can withstand all these forces. And it also divides us in the parts that we want divided, like our intestines from our abdominal cavity. And also, nature and you are both complex, nonlinear, unstable systems. We're not just a body, we are whole systems. We, in our something like 80 trillion cells in our body, over half of those are microbial cells. Less than half are human cells. So you are already a complex system with a living biome, not only in your gut, but in your fascial sea as well, that matrix, that fluid liquid solution. The unstable part means that you're adaptable to changing situations. And that is really essential for our survival. Because like nature, we all have one goal, and that's let's deal with whatever comes and find a way to restore our homeostatic balance. Now, we can have brilliant, innovative, creative ways, or we can have old ways which may not be the most adaptable ways to respond to current situations. And let's remember that if you're going to let go of those old and tried and true ways, what is it, like you're jumping off a cliff or something? Not really. Because what may appear to be chaos is really just in flux. There is an underlying dynamic order which seems to kick in, and this is our self-organizing principle. This is like us going for a long, silent, slow swim and letting our body organize itself. Now, here are some of the ways that nature translates those energetic forces that are impacting life on this planet and resolve them into harmony. They're examples of how energy meets form and how there's an underlying dynamic implicate order and a bias towards always creating a new and better version of life. So this is how we resolve those forces too. This is how energy moves through our form as well. And once we understand how to work with, not against nature, we can relax and we can allow our body wisdom to guide us into embodying who our soul is calling us to be. By the way, I'm not alone in saying that soul part. Jaap van der Wal, I want to just mention him. He's a brilliant fascial expert. He's an embryologist. He's called the fascial body the body of the soul. And I've experienced this. I know Bruce has and our clients have. And I really hope that you'll experience this too, if you haven't already. So before we're going to get up and do a little movement, but in a second, can you just go back to that? I'm sorry, Bruce. I just wanted to have a moment to look at that slide. There we go. So what you see here is spirals in the nautilus. You see the meandering quality of a stream. In the honeycomb, you see a beautiful example of closely packed cells. What happens when you try to form an organ or a larger organism? You have to get a lot of different cells and pack them closely together. How does that happen when you have spheres? Because cells are spheres. You can't pack, put a bunch of marbles into a glass. You're going to see little empty spaces between them, right? What's in those empty spaces? This is the important piece. This is the implicate order that will eventually organize all those close packed cells that are moving and swirling and pushing and pulling to create life. And how do they not squish one another? Or how does one not merge into another and blow up into some monstrous cell? So it's in the order, in that negative space, that dark matter in between. That's where the rich secret is here. And then you see explosions like this dandelion, and then branching, which can also, by the way, be cracking, right? When it moves out, it's branching. When it comes back in, it's cracking. So let's take a moment now and just stand up. And let me share with you some of the ways that you can wake up your quantum fascial body. So we're going to do what you may think of as stretching, but actually it's something that we call pandiculation. And that the difference is this: you see animals pandiculate, they don't stretch. When you wake up and you begin to move your body, you're not going to move all the way out or wake up and go all the way in. You're going to pulsate out and in. And it's from the center. It's not just, I'm going to stretch. No, you're going to stretch from the inside of you out. And we're going to do this pandiculation with nature's pattern. So we're going to play with spiraling and branching and exploding and meandering and close packing. And if you don't want to stand up, you can sit down or you can do it from your bed. So let's just take a moment here and come into our bodies and into the space that you're in. Feel the temperature of the room. Wake up yourself to being in this space. And then just take a moment and go inside yourself and feel inside how you're feeling. Take a baseline. And then I just want you from the inside to feel a movement that just lets you maybe meander your way out a little bit, and meander your way in. And when you come in, you're not contracting, but you're condensing all those little round, close packed cells of yours. And then maybe you're cells are going to start to spiral out a little bit. Oh, let a spiraling movement move from your inner to your outer space. And you don't want to let yourself go beyond your functional range. So pause for a moment and feel. And then maybe you can feel that wave that begins to spiral you back into yourself again. And you might want to make a little sound, a little yawning, stretching sound, because then maybe as you come out again, that sound's going to go branch you out through your fingertips and through the pores, the hairs of your skin. And you're branching and reaching out. And then maybe then you reach out as far as you feel like it. And then it begins to come back in again to the center, into the center. And then maybe you want to make another sound like a big yawn and go, and explode your energy out and then come back in again. And then pause for a minute and take another little baseline. You don't have to ever stop moving. Ooh, and feel the four corners of your feet, and they're going to suction themselves down into the floor. And like little suction cups, you're going to start to move back and forth and maybe just jiggle a little bit and maybe just bounce a little bit. Maybe make a funny little sound and let your body just loosen up and change your phase from a gel to more of a solution. And now you feel really fluid. Ooh, and now you can maybe start to bounce a little bit if that feels good, or lift your heels, wiggle a little bit from side to side. Woo! Shake it out. And take another baseline. And how do you feel? Just notice the sensation that is starting to come alive in your bodies, starting to wake you up to your internal world. You see, a pandiculation is not really a stretch. I don't even like that word, stretch. A pandiculation is like a restart. You're restarting yourself from a place of rest, and you're giving your body a moment to really come online. So now that we've explored our quantum tissue, let's take a look at how fascia can also lock us down into repetitive cycles of overwhelm. You know, I think fascia is the missing link between the physical and the energy body. We have about, well, this is the current number, 250 million sensory neurons in our fascia. That makes it the most sensitive organ we have by far. And we have 10 times more sensory than motor neurons. Sensory neurons come in, motor neurons go out. So we are like giant satellite dishes, taking in and in and in. And your fascia holds memory in many ways, in different patterns in your tissue, in the extracellular matrix, which is that sea that the cells are floating in the microtubules in your cell's nucleus, in the epigenetic memories without even changing the DNA, and in morphic fields that are not even in us, but we're attracting them. And chronic stress, the kind we get when we are in this state of overwhelm, emotional exhaustion, it damages our fascial tissue by over-tensing it or making it too loose to maintain our structural integrity. It weakens our immune systems, and it can significantly increase inflammation and myofascial pain. And for us empaths, we want to know that our perception, how we feel inside, and how we navigate the world is completely influenced by our emotions. So the sympathetic nerve endings of your autonomic nervous system make up most of the receptors in human fascia. And the sympathetic nerves, now they're the interoceptive ones, they monitor our internal feelings. They don't follow the usual sensory pathways to the brain's somatosensory cortex. Instead, they go via the periphery to the heart and then to the brain, and then they go directly into that insular cortex where perceptions go to become emotions and feelings and expectations, and then the stories that we weave in order to make meaning of our lives. This meaning-making thing, I think, is a great human gift. And the thing that interests me the most is how we can change those personal stories and create new meanings, new narratives for our future. So fascia feels and it moves on its own. It does this without involving our brain. It also is sending sensory information into our somatosensory cortex that I spoke about before. And the information going there is information about our proprioception and our exteroception. And this helps us position our bodies in space and gather information from the environment around us. But all of the feelings about how we feel inside, all of those interoceptive feelings don't go there to the somatosensory cortex. They go right up into the insular cortex. Now, repetitive movement, linear movement, scars from surgeries, moving really fast all the time, our lifestyle, the devices we're always hooked up to, and our cultural bias to prefer thinking over feeling have a huge effect on our fascia. It numbs the feelings, and it renders many of us with sensory motor amnesia. So that somatosensory cortex gets hurt by all that stuff, the information and how we proprioceive and exteroceive our world, that gets damaged by these patterns in our fascia that we create by how we live. And then also the information that we are picking up through all of our sensory information that's going from the heart to the brain, that's just being all reinforced by the information that we're getting from our bodies. So you see how this is kind of all spinning together? Why would we go through life this way? Why wouldn't we want the active presence and participation of our full fascial capacity, of our sensory system and our nervous systems working together? If we don't have it, we just keep setting ourselves up to repeat old patterns. Well, now we can make those changes and we know how to do it. Now, we may not have all the answers because this is an evolving science. And after all, we're complex systems. We're not machines. So we know how to do this, but we're also discovering it. It's emerging along the way. So perception and sensory awareness. Fascia's all about sensation and perception. That's really what it boils down to. It's where we move back and forth from inside the feelings in us to those in-between spaces, those intimate spaces of our family and our friends and our lovers, out into that wider world, and then back through that into us again. Fascia is what gives us a sense of being safe and seen and received. There has been so much attention to the vagus nerve. We've lost sight of the fact that we really do have two nervous systems, the central nervous system and a much larger, more ancient somatosensory nervous system. So imagine for a minute, instead of focusing just on one nerve to try to get that self-regulation happening, what if we ask this question? How can fascia support me to feel safe and supported and fluid in all the realms of my experience? How can I better attune to my needs and dreams by developing my sensory awareness and attuning to its inner guidance? And how can I be in relationship with these other spaces of existence, to the inside space and the outside space at the same time? I can feel all of this. Well, it's impossible to tone your fascia without toning your autonomic nervous system. What tones your fascia is movement and sound. But the thing is, you want to know what movements to do and what movements to avoid. And you want to explore how different sounds do different things to your tissues. And it may help to know a repertoire of sounds that have been researched and used by healers and other somanauts for decades. And you'll also want to know how to assess, balance, and rebuild your unique fascial architecture, which is why I'm so excited to tell you about my new program called Emergence. It's a full somatic awareness healing program that tunes your body's fascial web so that you can move with ease and open your perception to have more pleasure and more opportunity in your life. It teaches you how to work with both nervous systems so that you can heal your physiology, connect meaningfully with others, and evolve into your fullest creative self. It's about growing new capacities and developing our haptic stream of intelligence. And by this, I mean our biointelligent wisdom that is a whole other category beyond kinesthetic intelligence. This haptic intelligence will help you to grow the capacity to adapt to the changes and the chaos that we're all facing today. We're in a new world. And we want to be able to do what we've come here to do. We want to resource our own well-being in the process so that we keep anchoring ourselves in this ability to resource this vitality. And it asks us to reach for a higher potential, a higher vision of what fitness and well-being can really mean in this new reality we're living in. Now, before I go into the 3 keys of emergence, which is the 3 streams of somatic trust, let's take a moment and look at what emergence means. And here's a definition. It's the arising of novel and coherent structures, patterns, and properties during a process of self-organization in complex systems like you. What does that mean? Well, you are a complex system, so I don't have a formula for you. I have a whole bunch of ways to guide you, but you are self-organizing. When you were in the womb, you didn't have a set of directions. And thank God if you did, they weren't IKEA directions, right? But still, I mean, it wasn't a mental process. It was a self-creating, self-organizing process. That's a quality that still lives in us, in that mesoderm that is now your mesokinetic core body, that vital body of ours. That's your stem cell consciousness. And the thing about these self-organizing structures is that once things start to emerge in you, you feel whole again. And you get to maintain that wholeness over time. And as it evolves, you perceive changes. You go like, wow, 6 months ago I was here, and now I feel this is like so different. So now, let me tell you about the foundation of my program, Emergence. It's about cultivating this sensory capacity I call somatic trust. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to tell you about the levels, the streams of somatic trust, and I'm going to sprinkle some experiences in so we just don't talk about it. In Emergence, you're developing capacities simultaneously, these three streams, and they're also happening organically in you. So you're priming your body's capacity as the vehicle for your soul to grow and thrive. And come home to your body, there is this capacity to find refuge in your body, to rest in the regenerative rhythms of your own signature wave. This is the domain of your mesokinetic stem cell life pulse. I'll explain that later. Being able to find refuge and rest in your own signature life pulse is a huge component of somatic trust. It's what author James Ockman calls the continuum pathway. But even more important is to develop this capacity to anchor your internal well-being in your interoceptive self, in that flow, and rewrite the narratives that we tell ourselves. So let's experience that for about 5 minutes now. You don't have to join in, but I'm going to invite you to maybe lie down on a soft blanket on the floor or a yoga mat or on your bed or recline in a chair, whatever feels good to you. I'm just going to move this chair again and lie down. And I'm going to lie down on my back. Let me just make sure that I'm in the shot. Yes, I am. Oh, so here we are. Oh, it feels good to lie down, I'll tell you. My knees are bent. The four corners of my feet are on the floor. So I'm anchoring my feet, suctioning my feet, making contact with the floor. And then my breath just shifted. So I'm starting to just notice, how do I feel? What's my baseline? Noticing a little tension in the back of my neck, in my lower back. But my breath is shifting now, and I'm also starting to notice that I'm relaxing the weight of my pelvis and my shoulders and my head and my arms into the floor. I'm letting myself sink in. Not collapse, just touch, feeling that touch. And my breath shifts again, and I'm starting to maybe feel a little bit of movement starting to happen in my body. Not making it happen, and it's fine if you don't feel it. But let's also add a little bit of sound to this. So I'm going to make some gentle O sounds. And you're welcome to join in with me. You want to feel this, how this vibrates your tissues. And already I'm beginning to feel a little bit of spiraling, undulating movement. Just kind of starting to enliven this inner body of mine. And want to begin to move its way out to my arms and hands and fingers, reaching through my fingers like little branches of energy, moving into my legs and feet and toes and reaching down into the earth like roots, like little mycelium, a whole nest of them spreading. And I make another sound. Oh. Now I can get this undulation moving a little bit more in my body. And then maybe, oh my God, there goes a big unwinding as I reach through my legs and arms and roll over and rest. And then give yourself a moment here and notice how you're feeling. Drop in again to your sensation. And maybe you want to make a little note in the chat, share it with us. We could obviously go on much longer with this. We're really just beginning the process. And I invite you to try it out on your own later. Give yourself a little bit more time. It's a delicious process. I just need to move a little bit closer. So let me just get a little bit of tea. Bring yourselves back. I know I brought us out of that kind of quickly, and I'm asking you to make a big, quick transition, but I just really wanted to give you a little taste of the sense of dropping in, of taking that slow, silent swim. You don't need a pool. You can do it here, and you can do it with sound, and you can let yourself drop into those inner body sensations and trust that movement will begin to unwind you and bring you alive. So now that we're back, let's dip into the second stream, developing feeling awareness. It's also known as introception, and it's a crucial gateway to bringing our biointelligence online. Excuse me. And shifting our consciousness from the personality to the heart. So let's remember now that the vagus nerve fibers between the heart and the brain, well, 85% of those vagus nerve fibers are sending sensory information from the heart to the brain and how we feel about our insides, what's going on inside, how we're feeling about what's going inside. So fascia remembers that in many, many ways. Let me count a few of the ways for you. As I said before, there's tissue memory. So there's memory in all of the fascial layers of the body, and there's just a lot of memory there. And the extracellular matrix, which is this fluid sea that the fascia, it's your fascial microbiome actually, and the cells float in that. Now, the microtubules in the cell nucleus, as I said, the skin is so sensitive, and all you have to do is lightly touch it. And the hairs on the skin, which are sitting in little sebaceous fat pools, begin vibrating. And that sends an oscillation that goes down into your body through all the levels of body into the cell. How? Because that resonance goes all the way down through the extracellular matrix and the microtubules into the nucleus of your cell. Now, we also somewhere have in us epigenetic memory. And the epigenetic memory can hold things as well. It can hold old experiences. It can hold new experiences. And it can do this without changing the DNA at all. And then, as I said, also there's morphic fields. So in this quantum universe, you could be an attractor for something. Maybe it's in your ancestral lineage. Who knows? We begin unraveling maladaptive memory by attuning to our body weather. That's what we're doing when we're taking a baseline. And gradually and organically, we uncouple our living ecosystems from the stories we've told ourselves. And we begin to expand our definition of self to include the bodies of our ancestors, the land that we live upon, the body of humanity, the body of earth, the body of cosmos, the body of soul, and who knows, before and beyond. It's infinite. We are capable of accessing unimaginable understandings that arrive in us as revelations from random morphic fields floating through, or bone deep knowings, or things that just grow slowly over time and organically, and you might not even notice them until they get big enough for you to see them or feel them. So developing feeling awareness leads to the ability to resolve the split between pain and pleasure into a dynamic process of polarity, not duality. Okay, polarity, you need a positive pole and a negative pole to get a bioelectric charge. This changes everything, including your perception of time and space, I promise. It activates a suite of brain regions in us. It's called the salience network. And it's part of the brain. So it's everything that I talked about before in the brain. And it's the part of us that when it's working together decides what information is important for us and what information to focus on. It informs our emotions, our autonomic functions, and our self-awareness. And it is ignited when your insula and the anterior cingulate and a lot of other brainstem centers like the amygdala and the hypothalamus, they cooperate with your somatosensory nervous system. It's one orchestra playing together. So an example, because it's working in you anyway. When you're meditating and your mind is wandering and then you realize, oh, thinking about my dry cleaning. And then you realize that you're thinking about your dry cleaning and you bring yourself back into your meditation practice and into the presence of that. Well, that's your salience network. The beautiful thing about what activates it is pleasure, a sensation of pleasure, a sensation of peace, a sensation of connection. And that's how we dive back into a flow state. So practices in opening your perception and developing your felt sense expands and extends the embrace of your salience network. You just make it grow stronger. And this gradually is done by gradually shifting how we sense and how we feel and how we perceive. So we start small and we scale up from there. So now we have pandiculated with the patterns we found in nature. We've played with sound and movement as a way to connect to that original embryonic wave. And now we want to open up our perceptions by opening up our fascia and bringing more energy through the body to move with less effort and control. And instead, find a new relationship with the other side of gravity, lift. So let's do a little, our last exercise. It's going to be from a chair, and or you can just watch if you want to. I'm going to move my chair back just a little bit. And if you have a towel, like I've got a rolled up hand towel here. If you have a yoga mat, you can roll it up. If you have a little half dome, you can roll it up. You also don't need anything, so don't worry about it. But I rolled that up and I put that on the chair. And then another thing that might be nice to have, but you do not need, is a little ball, a child's toy ball. This is a gorgeous ball. It's a squishy ball. And I'm going to sit down on the chair, and the four corners of my feet are going to make contact with the floor. You can't see them, but that's okay. I'm holding this ball between my knees very, very lightly because I want to be able to remind my inner thighs to become active, to become awake and aware of this flow of energy that I'm going to start to feel coming up the insides of my legs, coming up through my torso, coming up to my tongue, and I'm going to lightly place my tongue on the roof of my mouth. So I invite you to do that with me now. And begin to attune yourself to the subtle changes that are happening now by finding the four corners of your feet gently suctioning down so that there's equal contact between the ball of the foot at the big toe, at the baby toe side, at the outer heel, and at the inner heel. And then I want to find the tripod of my pelvic floor so I'm sitting evenly balanced on my pubic bone and my two sit bones. And I invite you to rock back and forth a little bit to see what that feels like when you change, and then find a spot in the middle where you can rest. So I'm finding an equal resting of my feet, not weight in the back more than the front. And I'm finding an equal resting in my pelvic floor, not more on the sit bones than the pubic bone. And hopefully, but maybe not, more on the right or left side than the other. Just things to notice, not correct, not now. So we're attuning to the subtler points of how we make contact with what is around us, our sense of support. We're allowing those awarenesses to shift our breath. And then I want to play a little with the diaphragms of the cranium, the upper thoracic region, the thorax, the regular respiratory diaphragm, and the pelvic floor, and then even the diaphragms in the bottoms of the feet. So if you take your fingertips to these little indentations on your temples, and just send your energy fingers gently in, you're going to be actually making contact with your sphenoid bone. And it's like a little bat-shaped bone behind your eyes. And I like to think of it like a dragon. Now, if you've been watching that new House of the Dragons thing, maybe you have an image of a dragon rider too. What I want you to do is pull your vision away from your eyeballs, back into the center of your head, and become that dragon rider. So you're seeing from way back there. And all you're going to do is very lightly and gently attune with the pulsation. And if you can't feel it, it's okay. That pulsation, if you can feel it, is going to guide us as we very tiny move up, looking up, but from being the dragon rider way back in the head. And then the dragon rider brings the head to neutral. And then the dragon rider tilts the nose of the dragon down, and you're looking at the earth. This tiny movement. Just play with this little movement back and forth, remembering less is more. And looking from way back in the center of the head. So there's this tiny bit of movement in the cranium. It's like a breath. Now we're going to go to the upper thoracic diaphragm, which is your cervical spine and the upper thoracic, T1, T2. It's your collarbones, it's the first and second ribs, it's your sternum and the manubrium at the top of the sternum. So I want you to take your fingers underneath your collarbone. And again, you're just going to press the collarbones up and lift the chest. Feel it lifting just a tiny bit. Now, you're still riding your dragon. And then pull down a little bit to bring your chest back to a neutral spot. And then drag the tissue down a little bit so that you begin to curl your upper torso just the slightest bit. And then let yourself begin to find how easy it is to just begin to move the tissue without the muscles. It's just a floating of these diaphragms. And in the program, we actually have this skill that I work with you on called the floating breath, where we really get them all moving together. But I just want you to feel the wholeness of moving in the crown and the upper thoracic, and how easy it can be, and how this movement, the spinning up of the collarbones, widens your blades, lifts your chest. Maybe you're noticing that T1 and 2 seem to slide down slightly. And then you're going to drag the collarbones, roll them down, and feel the back body begin to open up, almost like fish scales. And then begin to bring yourself back to neutral and take your hands to your ribs and lift up a little bit. So you're at the respiratory diaphragm, and the front fingers are on the front of the ribs and the thumbs are on the back of the ribs. And you can just press the front fingers down a little bit and open up your back. And press the thumbs down and open up your front. So we're starting to just open up these ribs a little bit more so that the diaphragm can move more easily with less adhesions, less restriction. You're actually phase changing. You're going from a gel to a sol here. And now take your fingers and press up a little bit and feel how you can begin to lift the upper body as well, all in unison. And take your fingers and press them down and let your thumbs traction up and feel your whole back open up. And then come back to the center. And then one more time down here in your pelvic diaphragm, fingers on the pubic bone and the sacrum. And what I want you to do is just lift your sacrum up a little bit, your backhand, and tilt forward toward your pubic bone. And then press your sacrum down a little bit and the pubic bone comes up. Or you can do it from the pubic bone. Press your pubic bone down a little bit and you roll forward in your pelvis. and lift your pubic bone up a little bit, and you roll back in your pelvis. So we're going to coordinate all of these movements together and just begin to feel how you could very slowly curl forward, staying very present with all the diaphragms close packing, folding in. The back is opening up like the scales of a fish. And then you're very slowly bringing the pubic bone forward, opening up the respiratory diaphragm, the upper thoracic, the cranial, and you begin to see how the whole body wants to move in a wave. And you can add a little O breath to this. And then just let your body begin to respond in a wave motion. You're opening that internal fluid core. You want to know that's what is happening is that we want to expand ourselves from that core outward organically. So there's a sense of pulsation that we want to find so that the movement might also pulsate and build, or pulsate and quiet. And then let yourself slowly come into stillness and take a baseline. What are you sensing? Not feeling emotionally, not thinking, not analyzing. Just raw data. What is the body talking to you about? What is your body weather? It might not even have a word. Empaths, you want to know that when we're in overwhelm, our fascial web shrinks. It shrinks us like we're in a girdle. And we feel that compression. And moving outward feels scary. And there's something in us that's very reasonable, and that is that when things feel scary, they feel too high risk, and we tend not to go risk. We tend to shrink, and we tend to settle for less, even if it feels terrible. And I think it does. You know, and that doesn't mean that you open yourself up and you're taking crazy risks either. So, how do you feel now? Do you feel more rooted? Do you feel more spacious inside? You might want to share some of your responses in the chat. So, rootedness, internal volume, these are emergent properties, and they arise automatically in a healthy toned fascial web, because fascia forms itself from your still active stem cell consciousness. And this is the mesokinetic spiraling rhythm that I hope you started to feel. Meso from mesoderm, and kinetic as in moving, mesokinetic. This is your signature wave. And you're activating the coherence of your authentic self to become your own sensory inner guidance system. We want to be able to trust the biointelligence that grew us from an egg to a human, and know that that stem cell consciousness lives in us still. You can still access it, and you can still anchor it. So let's go to the third stream of somatic trust now, creative self-shaping, and really the core of this emergence program. And that's the privates that I do one-on-one with people. So creative self-shaping. So we organize a more efficient and less effortful movement. We increase your energy flow. We increase neuronal connections. We experience more internal volume and reduce compression. And we grow our sensory intelligence while increasing our central nervous system resilience. I just have to interrupt, Bruce, and say that I see we need to switch to low power mode here on your device. And while he's doing that, I'm just going to keep on talking. The movement therapy that I created is from my own 40 years of somatic research, but it also bears traces of influence from all my mentors and teachers, including Emily Conrad and Continuum, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and Body Mind Centering, Irene Dowd, Idiokinesis, Tom Myers Anatomy Trains, Biotensegrity and Fascial Research, Yoga, Fitness, Madeline Black Pilates, Eric Hawkins and Nancy Meehan Dance Company and their dance technique. And of course, the two biggies, Barbara Brennan and all of her brilliant energy work, and which lives in my blood, always will. And Sri Aurobindo and the mother, especially Aurobindo's Integral Yoga and the mother's seminal book, The Mind of the Cells. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. So in these one-on-one sessions, we look at how your bones are moving inside the fluid sea of your fascia. I want you to get to know how your body is or is not moving and where you might be stuck. Because bones are also fascia. They're just denser versions of it. Your bones, your ligaments, your tendons all create this embodied stability and flow and support us along with the rest of our fascia to act like springs that propel us through space. So we use less energy. We move more efficiently when we have healthy tissue. They spin, they spiral. And then when they do that, they conduct piezoelectric energy and act as this hydraulic pump through this beautifully hydrated, juicy fascia. And when this happens, you recover these pathways that live in you of efficient energy flow and spinal fluidity. Even when you're standing or moving around, you can learn how to trust your body to be both stable and fluid. And when you move your arms and legs, you're moving as expressions of the inner flow of your living mesokinetic core. You're not moving like that mannequin from the joints. That's how we damage them. So this one-with-one work includes lots of support material that you get aside from being with me. And you can go through it all on your own, at your own pace. There's almost, well, no, there may be 70 videos of us teaching of these somatic sessions, of sessions of play, about awakening your pleasure, your sensation, the lenses of your perception. And it's all self-directed learning and integrated at your own pace, whatever you can do. Because remember, you are a complex system, not a programmable machine. And you know, it takes, they say, between 6 and 22 months to rebuild your whole fascial, your whole collagen matrix. Now, empaths, we have more elastin than collagen, so it may take us a little bit longer than that, or it could take less time, but you'll notice the effects right away. That's the great thing. But still, You're unique, and I don't know what issues you're dealing with, and maybe you have all sorts of discoveries or all sorts of things that arise in your life that dictate that you really have to be the one to grow at your own pace. And so really, I want to support you in that however I can. And that really is the way I think we can whisper the soul body awake. So, my empathic friends, if this is speaking to you and you'd like to release some of that old residue from a dying age that you're carrying around inside your tissues, and you want to leverage your body and your gifts so that you can live fully, then you might also want to have the tools to maintain your longevity along the way. I do have another free offer for you. I want to invite you to have a conversation with me about you and what you're looking for, and to see if and how I can help you, or maybe even refer you to other resources. Who knows? You just go to evolutionarysomatics.org, book 121, to schedule a free private call with me, Elizabeth. We'll put it in the chat so that you can see it. If you are interested and you didn't get it down, but it's www.evolutionarysomatics.org/book121. And if you're interested in this, let me know, because I only have so many spots available. Now, I will be going and opening up more spots, but still, I'm one person. And if you're a good fit, I'll let you know. And if you're not a good fit, or this is not the right place or time for you, I'll let you know that. And I'll see how to help you take the next step that you want to take. So we'll go to questions and answers in a second. And we'll start with anything that might be in the chat. But before we go there, I just wanted to thank you. I want to thank you all so much for coming today. And remember, empathic people like you are the most creative, compassionate people in the world. And you have a great gift to offer. And these times need you more than ever. The world needs you more than ever. And also, being empaths, we're kind of like canaries in the coal mine. You know, our distress is the distress of the world. We feel it all. And if that feels like it's a lot, I want to let you know that what you heal, you give others. And so let's break this delusion of separation, and let's feel our intimate connection to everybody and everything. And maybe that's the greatest superpower we empaths can offer. So I want to really thank you so much for coming today. I hope you leave today feeling resourced and hopeful. I want you to feel a sense of optimism about your future and about your role in the collective evolution of all of our souls. So thank you. And let's just go to the Q&A. So Bruce, do we have any questions
Not really.
in the chat or any comments you want to read to me?
I think they should just ask, unmute and ask.
Okay. Well, I see some beautiful thank yous. Thank you. So why don't you just unmute yourselves and
Deanna raised her hand. Here it is.
Who's raised their hand?
Deanna, can she just
Deanna, yes, go Deanna.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate this question to be answered. I'm fascinated by the negative spaces and the dark matter that you mentioned in the beginning and how that plays a role in informing the cell and the microtubules and all that interconnection.
Okay, that's a great question, and it's a big question. So the dark spaces. Do we have an echo? We have an echo. So this is our ico ball, which is based on an icosahedron, and it's hard struts and soft fibers, bands that move. So the natural action of the cell is this push-pull action. That's how it responds to all the forces in the environment. Now, there's gravitational force, and its opposite is levity, lift. And there's electromagnetic force, and there's weak nuclear force and strong nuclear force. And all of life is getting exposed to all of this. And then when Einstein was talking about it, there was this talk of the fifth force, the God force. And people were saying, oh, there's no God force. What are you talking about? And Einstein's like, no, there's something else. And yes, there's something else. There is an implicate order. So you have this complex system, and somehow this complex system is resolving itself into thriving organisms and communities and bodies and whole ecosystems and planets. And how does that happen? It happens in a fractal dimension. So from the teeny from micro to the macro. And the fifth force, now they're saying, okay, there is a fifth force. We're going to call it dark matter. And I love that they call it dark matter, because to me, it's like, you can't know everything. The mind cannot shine a light on everything. There is always the darkness. There is always the mystery. And in this combination of nature resolving itself in the forces to thrive, this dark force enters in, and what you have here is a geometric representation of the dark forces. The icosahedron is water. It represents water. Each of the platonic solids represents something, and this represents water. And we're mostly water. Those round cells are bags of water. So 80 trillion water bags moving around, spiraling, pushing and pulling. How do they resolve themselves? They resolve themselves in this movement that is organized in this implicate order that is in the shape of a sacred geometric form. So everything is spinning and spiraling. And what is underneath is this dimension of coherence. Somehow it emerges when the conditions are right.
And do you consider that the outside forces that affect matter itself, that are not in time-space continuum, which is Still's idea of what, is informing our third dimension, it's outside of it?
And your question is, do I include what is outside of it?
Is that in parallel, what you just explained, to that explanation of reality? That there's some information that is informing our third dimension, but it's outside the time-space continuum.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's David Boehm's implicate order that we talk about, that you're mentioning dark matter as being, but this is a force that is unseen because it's outside of the time-space continuum that is informing us. And dark matter is prevalent everywhere, right? It's antimatter. It moves everywhere, including this outside of time-space continuum. And,
Yes.
and that's the fifth force.
Yes. And there's more dark matter,
right,
than there is manifested matter.
Beautiful.
Yes.
The space between the marbles.
The space between the marbles is so important.
Like the God quotient. People talk about it as being the God quotient.
Yeah.
And that was the cauldron, the fast-speeded Hadron Collider in Switzerland.
Yes.
That's what they were finding, the God quotient. They wanted to find out, why is that happening with matter when you speed it up so fast and smash it together? Very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in our case, we slow down so that we can feel. So that we give our bodies time to awaken.
Beautiful. So we're pacing it.
Yes.
Right? And each individual is a snowflake to pace at that pace.
Yes, yes, yes.
But the implicate order is always going to inform the pace. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, just unmute yourself and don't wait for anybody to call on you. And if you step on somebody's toes, it's not the end of the world. Everybody's nice here.
Can you explain a little more about why empaths have more elastin, and how do elastin and collagen, thank you, interact with one another?
So fascia is this fourth state of matter, which means it can be a more gel-like substance or a more fluid-like substance. Empaths happen to be born more on the fluid end of the spectrum with more elastin than collagen.
Okay.
So it makes us more elastic. It's like we respond more.
We're actually born that way.
What?
We're actually born that way.
It's a genetic thing. Yeah. I mean, you'll see. And people with collagen predominant fascial matrices they're sturdier. I have always had, I mentioned in the beginning, I've always had hypermobility. I actually have EDS, which is an extreme version of hypermobility that can manifest itself in other kinds of ways. But what happens with this kind of condition is I was born this way. So when I was a yoga teacher, I could do all sorts of different things. And I was always, tying my leg around behind my head and stuff. And I was always getting a lot of praise for how bendy I was. Well, actually, I was stretching myself beyond my structural integrity. And I was getting praise for it. And so what did I do? I started to do more of it. And I thought it was great. But then really what happened to me over time is that I began getting stiffer. Because you can't go beyond your structural integrity without having a physical and an emotional response in your body. And you're going to bring yourself back in. And so what we want to be able to do is look at the places in our bodies where we maybe have gone beyond our structural integrity and bring ourselves back in and make ourselves feel more stability. But it's not the kind of stability that comes with holding on tight and being stiff. It's the kind of stability that is a part of also being fluid. Right? And so that's the kind of gentle rhythm that brings us back into this coherent balance of these two. Does that answer your question, Gemma?
It does. And I don't want to make you go on too long, but I'm suspicious of then why I was never hypermobile, and I was never overly flexible. If anything, I was always, more tight oriented. But I'm wondering if that was.
That's a great question.
Because I feel like I was an old soul, and I started compensating a long time ago for that.
Being an empath doesn't have to mean you're hypermobile.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're all different. It's all different spectrums and streams merging in us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, you can look at elastin predominant people from a perspective of, well, there's a genetic predisposition to that. Or you could look at it from another perspective too, that maybe you are an old soul, or maybe you have ancestral stuff you're picking up on, or maybe you are just naturally gifted in being able to sense what's going on around you. Or, and I'm not saying this is you, but for me it was, maybe it's a trauma response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when I was a little kid, I had to have my spidey senses about me in order to pick up what was going on, so that I could try to do what I thought I needed to do to make myself feel safe.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right, Elizabeth, for another question.
Sure.
It's not really a question. Mostly, I just want to thank you for providing the balance where both are essential. There's no black or white thinking. There's no either or. The work that I'm studying does state that exactly, that all of empaths are essentially advanced stages of fight or flight. So it's all PTSD in an advanced form, which I didn't drink that Kool-Aid fully. I take part of it into account, but there's room for so much more space. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, it feels harsh to say that it's advanced forms of PTSD. I think it's
very hard.
I think you know what I think, Janine? I think it's the next stage of our evolution that we need to feel. There's not enough, there's too many narcissists in the world. Look, they're in Congress, they're running corporations, they're deciding that we can just go on and business as usual, do the same old all the time, and not respond to the crises of today's world, and not be empathic toward the suffering of others. I mean, if you can't feel the suffering of others and be moved to change the world and make a fairer world, what's going to happen? So I think it's the opposite of we have PTSD and blah, blah. We may have it. Some of us do. But I also feel that we need to say, no, we have this thing called feeling, and we can help you recover that as well. Because I think that we're all going to do a lot better if we can find our own inner coherence. And that's what all of these empathic healers that all of you gathered here today are really doing anyway.
What you can feel, you can heal.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't want to turn off the feeling. And sometimes you say to an empath, oh, well, what you really need to do is feel more. And they go, no, I don't want to feel anything else. And so what I'm saying is, you want to feel pleasure. You want to feel connection. And there's a way that you can find that in yourself. And then it's not like you're not feeling, because the bad stuff because you want to be able to also bear witness. But it's different, Janine. It changes in this landscape that lets you see, like, the beauty and the tragedy and humanity. And also I mentioned like time shifts for you. You get to kind of feel like, oh, I see how this all evolved into this. And this is like such a human story, and it gives you so much more compassion. And then you can see where it could go if nothing changes, and where you want it to go. And it just kind of puts you in the flow of, let's bring forth that implicate order. How can I participate in that coherence unfolding? Are you good, Janine?
Very good. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
You're
Just
so
taking
welcome.
notes.
No, it's okay. Anybody else? Just chime in. I think that's it then, right? Once again, thank you. What?
Thank you so much. That was so much. It was so rich. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I invite you all to unmute yourselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Blessings to you all.
And to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Farewell.